What's up, chat? Welcome back to the stream. We are, it's Tuesday. My intro has been sabotaged. Yeah, we're talking about new detachment stuff today. I was a little excited that we would get to hop into some of the new stuff from Aeldari and Chaos Space Marines. Unfortunately, I think that the fact that we had a kind of a limited showing of event like attendance over the weekend means that we didn't get a lot of people playing 40K. There's also rules cutoffs and new model releases that we have to discuss. So it was not quite the level of showcase for the new detachments as I was hoping for, but we still have some to discuss, and we'll probably get a bunch more in the next week or so. So that's okay. We have still some to talk about, and I even dived into some of my own events where people have been registering these new detachments and new units and things, and we'll talk about what's going on over there. There is a non-zero chance I may stream a couple of them as well, because for whatever reason, there was a high incidence of like Chaos Space Marines being paired against each other. So that's where we're at. Let's talk about it. So first of all, we're going to be starting with let's start by talking about some Renegade Warband. So this is kind of the highest, I guess, performing, the most popular new detachment of the crew that came out recently. This is the one that basically makes you into Space Marines. You get the opportunity to advance, fall back, and charge on a battle shock test, and you can also get reroll hits against the target, but you lose Dark Pacts and you gain Assault. So the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that we have a very strong selection of stratagems. We get sustained lethal hits for 1 CP, so you can kind of get Dark Pacts back. You also can get +1 to wound against your Vendetta target, which is your Oath of Moment equivalent. You get a +1 AP in the shooting phase, or D6 reactive move, a 4+ fight on death, and an obsec. Basically, 6 pretty fire stratagems. Very good ones that you absolutely want to. Your opponent's gonna have to play around the entire time, but you also have big punch up effects. So it's no wonder that this ends up being the most popular of the new detachments. Also, importantly, unlike Huron's Marauders, the other one that we got, it's not really keyworded to any particular characters. There's not any requirement to take anything in particular, so you can kind of just play it with whatever. There is this weaponized hatred enhancement that normally will go on some sort of support character in order to give you the a second Oath of Moment target if you've destroyed your first. It is incredibly expensive, but certainly worth playing. And looking at small table events over the course of the weekend, we actually saw this detachment do really well. It went undefeated in 2 separate or 3 events, I think. If I am correct, I think it was 3. At the very least 2. It was undefeated in 2, and it lost in the finals of 1 more. Now, these are smaller events. Obviously, the larger ones didn't necessarily allow this new detachment, or the models weren't available, so people weren't hopping in with it. But we did get a couple of people who rocked it at smaller table events, where usually the rules are a little bit laxer. You have more opportunity for creativity for designing your list. And this one is from the February Wargamer RTT. This lost in the finals. So this was a 2-1 list, and it lost to Adeptus Custodes. It lost to Shield Host list. This one was rocking a Chaos Lord with Empiric Symbiote. That is this enhancement. Gives you +1 to advance and charge rolls. So you're a little bit faster, and if you hop that into a chosen unit, which I think is what we were doing over here, then we get very nice access. We get essentially +2 to the total threat range that this model is going to be able to move. We have Huron Blackheart, the Great Man himself, plus Corsair Reeve Captain. There's a couple people playing the Reeve Captains. I'm interested to see whether or not that sticks around. I don't know. I don't believe there are Corsair Reavers in this list, but we were just playing him as an infiltrating, just like kind of beatstick guy. You can oath an early target and then just use him to beat them to death. Like, I think that's probably fine without going all in on the full unit of Corsair Reavers, or of Red Corsairs. So that's not the only Reeve Captain that we're gonna see. We had Vashtor, the Archifane, in there, plus the Warpsmith with weaponized hatred. So we have access to a lone operative character who has this crazy expensive 60-point enhancement. Makes him into a very, very expensive piece, but he can sit in the backline and just provide you the double rerolls. He doesn't have to, there's no like proximity. He doesn't have to be line of sight or range of anything in order to add the second set of rerolls. So it doesn't really matter who you put it on. As long as it's a character who is going to be on the battlefield. I believe it requires him to be on the battlefield. Start your command phase after you've selected a vendetta target. Like the second. Oh no! You just have to not be in a transport, I guess. So you could start him in reserve, I suppose, and then come in later. But either way, as long as you're not in a transport, the ability will work. As soon as you embark in a transport, all your abilities turn off. So that's the only place I guess it doesn't work, or if you're dead, obviously. We have a cultist mob, legionnaire unit, 1 rhino, double vindicators. Interestingly, the rerolls of the Vindicators feel very good. Like for 1 CP, you can get hit rerolls and +1 to wounds. So you win the whole game on 2s, and it's basically Oath the Bowman for a command point. It is a command point though, and you are almost certainly not taking Abaddon in this build because you do not need his hit rerolls because you have it from the detachment. So, and he's very expensive for a model who's not going to Dark Pact. And as long as he's not Dark Pacting, which you lose, he doesn't generate command points. So there's no external command point generation in this list. So the downside is that because a lot of its power is contingent on those stratagems, you are going to have to pay out the nose for them. But the funny thing is that getting hit rerolls is normally incredibly strong for Chaos Space Marines because you have so many critical effects. You have lethal hits, you have sustained hits, you have Hellbrew combo, all that stuff. None of that works here. So these Vindicators are not necessarily the classic Vindicators that you've been seeing. That said, still high volume, high damage means that any applied buff to them, hit rerolls, +1 to wound, +1 AP, all that stuff, is extremely valuable. So, there's no surprise we're going to see Vindicators for sure. We have a chosen unit for the +1 to charge guy. We have a Noise Marine squad, one Obliterator squad. These guys are great with the hit rerolls. Warp Talons, another unit that, as long as we can, excuse me, chat. I have too many tabs open today. As long as we can improve their chances of killing their charge target, so we can give them sustained or lethal, we can give them rerolls, we can give them +1 to wound. All of those allow them to punch up into heavier things and then turn on their sort of up-down cycle, right? So Warp Talons, if we just take a peek at their profile here. When they destroy an enemy unit in engagement range, or when they destroy an enemy unit and are no longer in engagement range, then they can pop into reserve at the end. Their weapon profile is very middling. Now, there is kind of a weird thing with Warp Talons that happens, which is that they do not have any Chaos Icon. So when they Dark Pact normally, there is a very reasonable chance that you will lose Warp Talons. There are only 2 wounds. So as soon as you fail the Dark Pact check, which is like a 30% chance, there's a 66% chance. So there's basically a 1 in 5% chance that you lose a whole Warp Talon when they Dark Pact. As soon as you lose a Warp Talon, the chances of them killing a hardy target, and this is less impactful for the 10 model squad, but for the 5 model units, when you're playing little squads, it gets really disgusting. However, you want to preserve that model count for as long as you can, because you want to basically push the dial to one-shotting your target as far in your favor as you can go, because some games are simply lost off the warp talons not doing their job, right? They simply just straight up die. The other thing too that's important is that they get advance in charge of this detachment. It's contingent on a battle shock check, but the only thing they need battle shock for is to buff their own stats with strats, or to like reroll charges or something like that if they super need it. So they get extended threat range of this detachment, and they get hit rerolls that are not contingent on them making a dark pact check, which means they won't lose models before they attack, which is kind of huge. The other thing, too, is that all of these stratagems are good on them, just like we talked about. You get +1 to wound, which is amazing on a high-volume twin-linked weapon. We also have lethal or sustained hits, which is just as good as dark pacts. So if they don't battle shock themselves, they do get an opportunity to buff up their output. So the chances that they kill their charge target on the hit is extremely high. So it makes total sense that you would be playing these guys in this attachment. It seems incredibly good for them. Obliterators as well, because they have indirect fire, and they get hit rerolls from the detachment ability, also seem good. Especially if you're in a situation where one unit, this happens with Gilliman Space Marines a lot, one unit is exposed out in the open so that they can so that your guns can shoot them. So you assign them the first Oath of Moment target. And then, because you have the Weaponized Hatred guy, once you kill them with like Vindicators or whatever, you assign the second Oath of Moment target to something out of line of sight. And then you can trigger the Obliterator indirect fire ability to shoot them, which seems pretty cool. I don't believe that is contingent on Dark Pact. I think it's just it used to be Dark Pact adjacent, but we're just rocking it. So I don't know. Seems pretty straightforward. Also, good support for Noise Marines as well, a unit that already did not have Dark Pact, so we didn't get any benefit from the army ability anyway. We're not losing anything taking the Allied Marines, which actually means that the Allied Marines are pretty good. And I've seen a lot of armies in this detachment playing around with Plague Marines and other similar units like that. So this was a 2-in-1 list, but we also have some other ones. We have a 2-0-1. It drew in the final game, I believe. Oh no, it drew in round 1. But this is from the Febrero Giravela. And this was Javier Pinot, who I love this because he typed out a lot of his list because it was built off of in a list builder, but the new models weren't in there. We're playing Renegade Mongers, love it, and we're playing a Pirata Jefe con double oath. Is anyone else excited about the new Pirata Jefe datasheet? This is what I'm calling the pirate captain now, by the way. He is now a pirate Jefe. That's canonical, and no one can convince me otherwise. So again, the second time we've seen the pirate captain being included here. I'm interested by it because I guess you could take a peek at his datasheet real quick. I guess he gives you an infiltrate option, and he's not quite as expensive as a lot of the other character options because he's only 75 points. I guess what's a Chaos Lord at? He's 80. The Warpsmith makes a lot of sense to me because I feel like a lot of times you're going to be able to just like sit him in the back and do stuff. But the Pirate Captain, I guess, has like slightly better late game melee just because he has his own like +1 strength and AP ability and reroll charges. So he himself hits kind of hard. I don't know. I guess that might be the consideration. He is 15 points less than a Chaos Lord. So I guess the The only other sort of competitors would be Dark Apostle is, I think, 10 points less than he is. And a Warpsmith, I think, is 5 points less. And the Dark Apostle, I think it's like much harder to kill because he has the extra dudes in his unit. However, you typically want him to be attached into something in order to utilize his leadership ability. Whereas the Reef Captain, you can kind of just do whatever with because he doesn't really have a leadership ability. Besides the reroll charges thing. So I guess that might be the thing. Also, just a new model. I don't know. People may be looking for. Reeve can go into Legionnaires. I guess that makes sense. So he can be like a sort of a late gamer. He doesn't push up really early, but when you charge something on an objective, you get rerolls, and then he also gets wound rerolls from the Legionnaires. So you go to Strength 6, AP 3 with wound rerolls. Plus, you get hit rerolls from the detachment ability. I think I get it. That seems pretty good. Pretty interesting stuff. But he's got the double oath. We have the Maestros, which I think is Masters of the Maelstrom. It's listed in characters, but importantly, this is an important PSA. We had this discussion with somebody the other day. The Masters of the Maelstrom, not characters. Don't get that wrong. They don't have the keyword on the datasheet, which totally changes how they operate on the table. If you get that wrong, I think you're largely nerfing yourself. It's basically like I think the character keyword on them would be pure unadulterated downside. But yeah, don't don't get it messed up. They are epic heroes, but they are not characters. We're also running Huron and Fabius Bill, double Chaos Rhinos. We have double Chosen squads. Now, Huron can go into Chosen, right? This just seems like kind of a sweet place for him, maybe. Where's he at? He can go into Chosen. He goes into Terminators for some reason. Is this the only instance we have a power armor character going into Terminators? I feel like it is. Because he's definitely just the power armor guy. That's actually wild. I hope that happens more often, by the way. I would love to see more cross-contamination of unit attachment options. Because I think having character, like, armor types, restricting them so hard, just restricts design space. It's more interesting if they apply unique buffs, and then you can cross-pollinate a little bit. I think that's true of all factions, by the way. I don't think that's just true of the Space Marine equivalents. There's this like push in a lot of cases for characters to only attach with the thematically appropriate unit. A good example is like a Wings Tyranid Prime attaching only to Gargoyles and Warriors. And you're like, well, it's Gargoyles because he has wings, and it's Warriors because he's a warrior. But like, what if you could attach him into, I don't know, fucking Barbgons or something? Might be interesting and cool. And hopefully they do that more. But that can give him a lot of maneuverability. He can get advance and charge baked in and also a reactive move. Pretty cool. Piratas. We have 2 units of pirates, of red Corsairs. What does con todo mean? I am not a Spanish speaker, unfortunately. With everything. They're fully kitted out. What weapons do they have? I don't know. All the weapons. Every weapon. Very good. New Calgar and Terminator armor can join anything. Yeah, I knew that. And Calgar joining into Calgar's like the OG Calgar is a Gravis who could join into non-Gravis, but the reverse is very rare. I think like Gravis armored infantry, I don't think have any non-Gravis attachment options, right? And the same goes for Terminators, obviously, until this Huron. As far as I know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I know, I believe that's it. But like, imagine you could put in, I don't know, any of like the weird like Black Templar attachments into like a Terminator squad, like an Execrator or something. It'd be cool. We've got double Obliterators plus Warp Talon squad for the reason we talk about, plus Noise Marines. So a lot of the same. We're seeing sort of very similar through line for a lot of these. Obliterators as shooting, because getting access to indirect fire makes your double oath go farther, and Oath of Moment helps you offset the downside of indirect fire. So very nice to see. Plus, they have a lot of infantry payoffs, which the Obliterators are able to utilize. The Warp Talons, getting all of the specifically applied bonuses, like infantry bonuses, the wound bonuses, and the advance and charge and things like that, to ensure that they can kill people and go into reserve. Makes sense. Noise Marines makes total sense as well, because they gain assault. They're basically like Emperor's Children Noise Marines, but they have way better damage output. And they lose nothing because they don't have Dark Pacts. The Chosen are interesting. They do not require Dark Pacts to advance and charge, which is very nice, because they just have it built in. We have a big unit of 10 for Fabulous Bill to hop into, and then the smaller unit is probably for Huron, I would imagine, as a delivery system. Huron seems kind of mid, but I guess this list in particular is playing a lot of OC manipulation. So you have, this becomes OC2 Chosen, right? And the Corsair Reefers are, or the Red Corsairs are OC2. They go to 3, and maybe even 4 if they are in proximity to Huron. So we have just a ton of this like forward presence that you can skirmish with, right? Either high OC fast infantry. Making this Chosen brick OC2, by the way, seems actually kind of crazy, because you do get the damage blank from the Surgeon Acolyte. You can kill the Surgeon Acolyte as well, and then they are also tougher to kill because of the +1 toughness. And then that brick is also 20 OC of high threat range, as long as they can keep proximity to Huron. That seems great. And then same with these guys as well. I think, does Huron's ability also care if you're battle shocked? I bet it doesn't. Oh, dang, it does. Non-battle shocked or damned units gets +1 OC. No! So what we cannot do is battle shock ourselves to advance and charge, and then also add +1 OC from a Huron. I guess they thought about that. That would have been good. But we do get 2 access to double reactive moves between Huron and the reactive move on from the detachment. And then we are playing Rhinos, so we have a lot of opportunity to reactive move back into transports with stuff, which does seem kind of spooky. Like having the pirates with everything over here, being able to infiltrate, string themselves out into a position, like holding an objective. They're kind of difficult to kill in one shot because they have 3 wounds apiece. And then if you come up to try to contest the objective, they just run back into their Rhino. That's pretty cool. I get it. Nice to see. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I'm interested as well that they're the only non-Chaos Space Marine, the only allied cult Marines that we have taken so far are Noisy Boys, and not Plagueys or any of the other guys, because I do think that there is probably play with Plague Marines making use of hit rerolls, right? Because Plague Marines retain lethal hits. So if we take a peek at their effects, literally all of their most of their ranged weapons have lethal hits, and then literally all of their melee weapons have lethal hits. They're higher base profile than a regular Legionnaire or something like that. They just don't get wound rerolls. But if you are targeting something that you get hit rerolls against, the incidence of lethal hits is greatly improved, which means their damage output kind of improves quite a bit. They're a little bit more expensive, but you get a T6 profile with a bunch of special weapons. And so I'm interested to see if we end up with these guys as another direction that the detachment goes in. Because I think giving them advance and charge and giving them hit rerolls actually kind of baller. The other thing, too, is that there's like a weird battle shock matters thing, because you're already probably bringing Noise Marines. And you also get these Flag Marines with the leadership debuff icon. You don't have any leadership payoffs in this attachment. That's like a Nightmare Hunt thing. But it's something, right? Like that's -2 leadership on just units that we're going to take out anyway. I don't think it matters that much, but it might be something. I don't know. Oh, you have to take a bullet gun for it? I guess that's fair. Do you have... I guess in Fivers, you have enough, like, random idiots, right? So that you don't have to... oh, what have I done? This is a Warpsmith. You get a Power Fist of the Champion. You get up to 2 sword guys. 1 special weapon. 2... Okay, yeah, you can just take, like, all melee attacks if you want to. All right. Well, fair enough, chat. We probably don't do the leadership manipulation thing. Well, the other thing to preface is that the Plague Marines aren't contingent on objectives for any of their effects, right? They just have lethal hits, and rerolls are from the detachment ability. Legionnaires are easy to play around if your opponent knows what they're doing. They theoretically give you wound rerolls, but it's not 100% of the time. It's like wound rerolls in the very late game, usually. When people are like scrapping for objectives, that's when they turn on really hard. But in the early game where you're just fighting, a lot of times people will just be like, oh, you have Legionnaires? I just won't touch this objective. And you're like, all right, cool. I guess I don't have a datasheet ability now. And otherwise, the Noise Marines, I think are like very marginally better because they have more heavy weapons. They have more 2-damage weapons. Their knives aren't as good, but they can, if they're building for melee, they get either the strength 5 AP2 weapons or the 2-damage weapons, which are only 4+ weapon scale, but when you're re-rolling hits, ideally, then it doesn't matter so much. That's fine. And whereas Chaos Legionnaire squads just have one, basically just 2 Power Fist profiles, right? Because of their heavy weapons. So these guys get an extra one of those. And lethal hits on everything. I think that they have more consistent damage output than the Legionnaires. Is how I see it. Rounding, or not quite rounding out, but talking about our last undefeated result with Renegade Marauders, we are going to move over to the Panda Cup, where we see Manuel Wayand went undefeated 3-0 with this one. This is Renegade Warband. Rocking a bunch of regular lords. One has the +1 advance and charge enhancement. We do have a Dark Apostle at the back with weaponized hatred, so he's 125 points for Dark Apostle. Very expensive. +60 for an enhancement is endlessly funny to me. Every time I look at it, I'm just like, that's so many points. Oh my god. But obviously, hit rerolls for your whole army against a unit, hugely powerful effect. So it should not be cheap. We've got Bashor the Archifane. We've got Occultist Mob, double Legionaries, double Chaos Rhinos, 1 Biker Squad, 2 Predator Destructors, triple Obliterators. Holy shit. Predator Destructors are interesting here because a lot of times the Destructor gets a lot of value out of lethal hits from Dark Pacts on its autocannon, because its autocannon does not have that high of a strength characteristic. And lacking lethal hits outside of the strat to lethal hit people is sad. And we can't do the +1 to win. I think I misspoke about that earlier. We can't do the +1 to win on the vehicles because that's infantry and mounted locked. So it's interesting to go hard into Destructors here, I think. That's an interesting take. However, we're also running a million Obliterators, so maybe that's where we want to kill big stuff. We'll just do melted attacks with Obliterators, and it's fine. Double Noisy Boys as well. So this is basically just a shooting battery, I think. We're just shooting people with this one. We didn't take the Warp Challenge. We didn't take any of the OC modification stuff. There's no Corsair Raiders. There's no Huron Blackheart. It is all just shooting people with guns. So double Chaos Lord, we can hop into the 2 Legionnaire squads. Vashor the Archifane runs by himself. The Dark Apostle, he can attach to the cultist, right? Oh, fascinating. Can he do that? I think he can. Because he can attach into a cursed, right? Cultist Mob. Yep. Does that... Chat. I don't have secondaries here. Does that make his unit big enough to dodge... Cull the Horde? me pull up the card. I pull up the old one. What have I done? I'll just grab it off of Wikipedia. Is it greater than 13 or is it 13? Survey says 13 plus. Oh, Chet. So because the Dark Apostle, right, is 3 models, when you attach him to the cultist mob, they become exactly 13. And so you can put him in the back. He's very hard to kill, and he dicks your opponent on Cull the Horde. That's awesome. I did not consider that at all. That's incredible. Amazing. I love that, chat. Oh, man. That's really cool. So, like we said before, a Dark Apostle is usually a character that we would want to like attach in and be aggressive with. So it's a weird place to put the weaponized hatred because you want that to be usable for that the entire game. But if it's a character that you're keeping alive and he also gets to mess with your opponent's secondary draws, it's super duper cool. I love that. I actually love that. That's really cool. Sick. All right. Well, anyway, we also have a bunch of Legionnaires to stab people with. 2 Chaos Rhinos, Bikies, Destructors, and the rest is shooting and stuff. I think that's great. All of the little like anti-cull plays, by the way, are really cool every time I see them. Also, like the anti-bring it down plays when you're playing like mass infantry and you take 1 vehicle just to mess with your opponents, bring it down. Those are also good. Is you know that your army is in a good spot as soon as you have the capacity to build specifically around certain objective cards, so that when your opponent draws them, they're bad. Those are very cool. I like that a lot. All right. Now the other thing is that we have one more Renegade Warband to talk about, and I guess while we are on the Renegade Warband thread here, I'm gonna hop into my own. I'm gonna toot my own horn here for a second because I'm gonna hop into my own events, because those were basically all of the new detachments that got played over the weekend at IRL events. I looked through some of the lists that were submitted for my events, and I noticed that a bunch of people were trying the new stuff, including in my GT, which just had a new list submission for it. The first one is Zombie Ninja, who we've streamed a bunch of different times over on the Twitch channel, who is running another Renegade Warband. We'll talk about some other detachments in a moment here as well. But he's running Cypher, Bile, Huron Blackheart, plus Masters of the Maelstrom, plus double Terminator Sorcerers. One of them has Weaponized Hatred. I don't know. I assume we don't have attachments for them. We're probably just running those guys by themselves. Jesus Christ. What are all these intros? We're probably just running those guys by themselves, but that gives you 2 instances of death hacks that you can apply to people to improve your AP. And you can stack that with the +1 AP that you already get from the stratagem when you shoot people. So you can bring yourself from AP 0 up to AP 2, which is actually kind of crazy. Just watch my cat fall off a chair. You are not a graceful animal, Inky. What a time. Because the enhancement works while you're in reserve, you can just hold this guy until battle round 3 and then just hop him somewhere and use him if you need to. And then hopefully by the end of the game, I guess it's not quite as like vital that you have the double rerolls by like round 4 or 5, because hopefully your opponent's army is less numerous, as it were. But you can just keep him in the back until basically like bottom of round 3 and then just ingress him somewhere if you need to. The other guy you could throw away a little bit in order to buff yourself. We are running double Legionaries plus a cultist mob. We do have, for characters, we are running Huron plus Masters of the Maelstrom. So we could make a big super unit with a Legionnaire squad where you have Huron plus all of the Master of the Maelstrom attacks. We talked about how sort of silly this datasheet was previously. For 115 points, you get You get 10 1-damage melee attacks and 11 2-damage melee attacks. You get, obviously, the wound rerolls situationally from the Legionnaires if they join in there. And they can embed to the Legionnaires, then join Huron as well. And then you can eat wounds on, like, your idiots, like Captain Sargata, your non-Astartes models in the unit. They retain Toughness 4 because they always use the highest toughness characteristic in the unit. And then you can reanimate those models back in. So you can eat damage on your 3 or 4 wound mooks, and then regenerate them. Plus you get redeployments as well. So it's all good, and the Legionnaire squads definitely offset the kind of middling strength that they have otherwise, because it's a lot of strength 6. However, if in the situations where you can get wound rerolls, that goes pretty hard. Where did my list go? Here it is. Especially, too, if we have Death X on something and you can push them to AP3, that gets crazy. That works in melee, right? It works. I know that it's an effect that is used in the shooting phase, but it affects you until the start of your next turn, right? Yeah, start of your next movement phase, it works. So you can get +1 AP. So you can push them to AP3, AP2, and the chainsword attacks, which is cool. So we've got 2 of those. We've got Bikers ×2, Chaos Rhinos ×4. That's a lot. It's a lot of Chaos Rhinos. Now, the weird thing is that, well, we could put Masters of the Maelstrom plus the Legionnaires plus Huron into a transport. I don't think their redeployment works if you do that because of all of the strange... Oh, no, we're embarked in a transport. Just kidding. It super does. Does Uriel's? Does he also get that version of it? Because I know most other effects like that don't. Now I'm curious. Which feels bad, but that was certainly a huge oversight when they designed those rules. I mean, it turns out the transport rules in 40k are very bad. Yeah, good news. It does work on Uriel too, but I think most of these other effects do not work if you are inside a transport, which is pretty wild. So we can put them in a transport. We can put the other Legionnaire bricks in a transport. We have a chosen squad, as well as triple noise marines. Jesus Christ. Now the chosen, we do have Fabius Bile, so he can hop in with his friends. And in there.
At letters from Links donated 50 Swedish krona through Super Chat. When double joining Masters plus Huron to one unit, is that an attached unit? I guess not. Person shrugging emoji. So no precision, only one source of VP, etc.
So Huron is not a member of the Masters of the Maelstrom. Huron is an attached character. So any unit he is a part of is an attached unit. The Masters are an embedded unit. So they become part of the a unit they are attached to. So they count as part of the unit for the rest of the battle. The unit strength is adjusted accordingly. Then Huron Blackheart can join the new combined unit. That becomes an attached unit being led by Huron Blackheart. So these models are essentially added to whatever datasheet you attach them into, what chosen Legionnaire, Red Corsair, whatever. Then Huron joins them like a normal character, is how it works. You just treat these as if they were war gear options for the unit that they hop into, is how attached units work. It's a super weird and strange, because sometimes they give these units the leader ability, which like throws people off. But that was, I think, a mistake that they did at the beginning of the edition. They don't do it anymore. Here on my join. Yeah, so the nomenclature is that, and I'm sure we can find this in the core rules. The nomenclature is that leaders join units to then form an attached unit. They don't attach. Attaching isn't a thing, isn't like the verb that the rules use. It uses the term join. And then the term for a joined the amalgam of a bodyguard and a leader is an attached unit. If I could find the deployment ability section, it would be in there. Oh, just kidding. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally off base here. It does use attach. I don't think that it would blow my mind if they treated those two words as being fundamentally separate. I guess it's worth looking up for just a second though. That's not the correct thing. I was totally wrong with that, chat. Let's see if attach appears in the commentary here. Or I guess we want to look at his join. Interesting. So I guess I think I was just totally wrong. I was just totally off base. Join is the term used for an attached unit, and this is that Huron Blackheart can join the unit this is joined. I think it's probably just typo'd. Yeah, I think that's just typo'd. Because Huron doesn't have any particular mechanics beyond leader that allows him to attach to units. I guess if you were to like be like a real weird stickler about it, you could be like, well, actually, no one can attach to the unit because, well, I guess you could say anyone can attach to the unit because only Huron can join it, but Huron doesn't even join. Huron attaches. I think that's a very aggressive reading of the word. I think what they mean here is that only Huron can be attached into this unit alongside the Masters of the Maelstrom, using his leader ability. He doesn't have any join mechanics. You're totally right that the join nomenclature is used for embedded units. I was totally mistaken for that. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. It reads that if Huron joins the Masters, they only count as one unit from then on. Right. But Huron doesn't join units, though. Right? If you were going to take this rule as like read this rule as strictly as that, Huron could never this clause wouldn't do anything, right? This unit can't join a unit that already has an attachment, right? And Huron can join a unit this unit has joined, but Huron has no capacity to join a unit. He only attaches to units. So if you were to treat those two terms as separate, like on this effect, I think the answer would be that basically this clause doesn't do anything. Which I believe would mean that anything could attach into the Masters. Into the Masters, like Legionnaire Squad or whatever. You attach the Masters at the start of the deck, but declare battle formation step, which is before you attach characters normally. So once you this whole section here, I don't really know why it exists. This is like boilerplate that they put on a lot of the like embed unit abilities, but because this happens first, you always have joined unattached units, because I don't believe, unless I'm mistaken again, which could be the case, that the leader ability triggers after the start of the step. So you resolve all your start of step abilities, which is like combat squatting, for example. If you have like Razor, or if you have not Razorbacks, I wish they did that, but if you had what's that stupid unit? An Immolator or a Sagittor ATV. Those all also work at the start of the step so that you don't have like weird things happen with attached units that then split. There was a super bizarre ruling for that in the index before that like rule was worked out correctly. Then after you move to the body of the step, that's when your leader ability triggers. So this effect isn't necessary. I don't really know, or I don't really know why they say this, because this already worked first. However, if you were to then look at this and say, well, the only unit that can use a join ability on the Masters of the Maelstrom is Huron, and Huron doesn't have a join ability, then anything can join them as long as it can join Legionnaires, essentially, which I think is very distinctly not the intention of this clause. If it did what you are reading it as, I think it would say Huron can join this unit as noted above, right? Parentheses, and no other characters can attach to that unit or something like that. I don't think that I don't think it's fair to read this as Huron gains this ability, then joins as if it was described on the Masters of the Maelstrom datasheet. So the main conclusion is GW needs better quality assurance. I mean, not wrong. Yeah. I think what they meant to say is attach here. Only Huron can attach to a unit this unit has joined, and they just forgot that they use those two words interchangeably. Maybe worth an FAQ, so like that might be something that you send to the GW FAQ page. But I don't think it's fair to say that Huron, if he joins a unit, or if he attaches to a unit with the Masters of the Maelstrom, becomes part of the Master of the Maelstrom unit and is no longer a character. Like, is no longer an independent character. That would blow my fucking mind if that was how that rule was supposed to work. I don't think that's very fair. Emailed the FAQ already. Yeah, I'll note that down because I have to do some updates to my FAQ. There's some rule stuff in there that's incorrect. I'll put that in mine as well. Because I think that is very clearly a mistake. Leader needs to be cleaned up in 11th. Yeah. I don't like the joining during building. I like the idea that units can transition based on the matchup. I'm a huge fan, by the way, from a design perspective, of anything that gives players agency over their build after the list construction phase, right? So when you show up to the table, being able to modify your list within the basis of the rules, I think is really cool and fun. And one way that 40K can do that in its current incarnation is by using the attached character rules. A good example of this is shock attack guns and tank busta or Luda squads, where in some cases when Mordaka was crazy, when it's everywhere, and sometimes you see this in Dread Mob too, where you take 3 shock attack guns, 3 tank busters, 3 Ludas. Tank busters and Ludas are okay units that you're going to play anyway. And then the shock attack gun gets a huge benefit from whichever unit it joins. It gets hit rerolls from the Ludas, and it gets +1 to hit and wound against vehicles from the tank busters. And if your opponent has only light infantry, you're going to attach them to the Ludas. But if your opponent has heavy vehicles, you're going to attach them to the tank busters. And I thought that was super fucking cool. And I wish that there were more instances of things like that, where sometimes your characters would attach or not attach. You also see it sometimes where, in some cases, you play like specific secondaries or like mass precision builds or something, where suddenly players with lots of attached characters will choose not to attach them. That's also very cool, and I see when that happens. And then you just like play around your opponent's capacity to answer you. I like that too. Any of that stuff is really cool to me. And I hope that you don't preset attachments like in list building or something like that. I think that would be silly. What I do think is that the leader rule, I don't know. I think a lot of it is like we're playing around an ability that's like, I think fundamentally kind of toxic, just because of how 40K works. And a lot of this might be that like you could fix the weirdness of the effect if 40K just had a different combat system, which it probably should, because its combat system is really bad. It's like super outdated, and it's time consuming and incredibly convoluted. And part of the issue is that like you want characters to have independent stat lines, but you also want to be able to like have this damage assignment sequence that gives the defending player agency over whether attacks are assigned. So you have to write, what is in essence like a 5-paragraph essay about exactly how toughness characteristics and wound allocation gets determined if you have a leader character, so as not to allow the defending player to game it in a weird way. And I think that's really where a lot of the problem comes from. Then you also have like the effects that like it's treated as a separate unit after its original unit's destroyed, so it like still sort of has its own data sheet. It's all really weird. I think that if they adopted the attachment mentality and made it so that, oh, thanks for the membership, Seismic Viking, or Seismic Viking. That's a very good username. If they basically used like the way that the join mechanic works, where you just become part of the squad, I think that's probably much cleaner. You do maybe open up some weird wound allocation stuff, but maybe either that's fine and you just decide to take hits on your character and kill them early, or maybe you change how characters work like fundamentally or something. I don't know. Or you just also say that like you can't assign damage to them or whatever, but you don't have this like unit splitting effect that happens when like half the unit dies. I don't know. It's not my favorite mechanic ever, honestly. As bad as like Lookout Sir was in previous editions, having characters just being a guy, like it did work. It did work mechanically. It was just that like the character blocking rules were really bad. But 40k is basically always a monkey paw. It's like either as soon as they fix something like the finger curls and they're like, yes, now there's no more Lookout Sir, but instead we have the leader ability. And you're like, no, I can't believe it. My hubris, my greed. I've been hoisted by my own petard. Instead of having an ability that gives you like a sort of lone operative kind of, you just have this 5-paragraph essay about how character models are supposed to work. So I don't know. I think they're like, they just have a tough time with it. If honestly, you could the new lone operative abilities where it's like go to 3 inches of a friendly unit and then you gain lone operative, probably fine. If we were to play around those, I don't know. Maybe it's okay. Lookout Sir's a clusterfuck. Yeah. My favorite part of like 40k was in the start of 9th edition when they were like, guys, we're gonna fix Lookout Sir. And then they changed it like 7 times because they couldn't feel like every time they would be like, this is how it works, and this is gonna fix everyone's problems with it. And everyone's like immediately like, here are 10 loopholes. And it was just became this longer and longer and more convoluted rule. What a fucking nightmare, dude. Like I don't know. We've survived with like the Tech Marine lone up next to a vehicle. We could just fucking play with that and make characters like kind of wimpy once you actually get to attack them. They're just hard to shoot at. Like that could be fine. Can we, for posterity, can we look at the 9th edition Lookout Sir rules? The 8th edition ones were a nightmare because they were so powerful. The 9th edition ones were funny because they got rewritten like 10 times. It is in shooting phase. Lookout Sir. Models cannot contain a unit that contains any character models with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less with a ranged weapon while that character unit is within 3 inches of the following: a friendly unit that contains 1 or more monsters or vehicles with a wounds characteristic of 10, a friendly non-character unit that contains 1 or more vehicle or monster models, a friendly non-character unit that contains 3 or more models. If that character is both visible to the firing unit and the closest unit, it can be targeted normally. All these fucking criteria. It was so funny. Oh my god. Yeah, there was like, I remember when they wrote it, there was like a very narrow selection of models that did not apply Lookout Sir to people. It was friendly unit that contains one of our monster or vehicle models of the wounds character descent. Oh, I think it was that like on printing, because it was you gained Lookout Sir from friendly monsters or vehicles. You could gain Lookout Sir from another a non-9 wound monster character, and so if you had that particular like characteristic, then you could infinitely chain Lookout Sirs. I think that was part of it. And then it's at one point they had it so like a bunch of vehicles just didn't give Lookout Sir because it was like any it was any monster or vehicle that I think it was any non-monster vehicle with a wounds character of 10, so like land speeders didn't project Lookout Sir, and then they had to change that. But then they changed it so that any monster vehicle could do it, which allowed character monsters and vehicles to do it. It was a fucking mess, dude. It was so bad. Those are all the changes that went through. What a nightmare of a rule. I loved it, but it was a nightmare. Oh, man. What a time to be alive. We've come a long way despite our current complaints. I mean, I guess so. Is this that much better, Chant? Is it? Is it? On a level, these are basically the same. It's just the what's the word? It's the minutia of the bad rules. It's not necessarily like the base rules themselves. I don't know. It is what it is. So that's a tactical tangent there, Chad. That's a classic tactical tangent. I think we talked about Renegade Warband enough. Let's hop into... Oh, here's an interesting question. Before we hop off that, are there any other... I'm curious now about this like join nomenclature that they use. Do we have any data sheets that have the join mechanic on them? Like a conclave, I guess. Do they also use that like join nomenclature for characters? That would be like a good litmus test. No, not really. I guess none of them have the like character attachment restrictions post joining. So like Necron? No, it wouldn't be Necrons. Necrons don't have anything like that. I guess not. I'm thinking about it, and I think the answer is no. If we look at like tomb crawlers. Yeah, it just looks at a unit being led by a Cryptek, yeah. What they should have said is be led by. This unit cannot be led by a character other than Huron. Stupid. Oh well. It is what it is, chat. I think that the intention of the rule of the Masters of Maelstrom rule is that only Huron can attach to the unit. The fact that they use the join nomenclature doesn't make sense to me. The Bulgrin guy? Or the Ogren bodyguard? By the way, Nork Deadog is like back in Militarum lists because he's a better melee beater than the regular Ogren bodyguard. And that makes me so happy. This model must join one command squad unit from your army. Command squad cannot have more than one loyal protector unit joined. Then cards as part of the command squad. Yeah, it is not possible. If it is not possible to join this model to a command squad, it does not take part in the battle. Yeah. So the problem is that what we're looking for are other instances where they used this join terminology for characters attaching to a unit. Which it seems like I think they just messed up on the Chaos Space Marine data sheet. It seems like is what the deal was. Ultramarine Wardens. Wardens of Ultramar. Guess we could have looked it up on the thing. Well, sorry to flashbang everybody, chat. It's extremely bright. Yeah. They copy pasted it from the Warden's ability. Only Captain Titus can join. Right, Inky? Fair enough. Well, there you go. So does that mean that Titus becomes part of the Wardens of Ultramar? I don't think that's the case. I don't think so, chat. Maybe it's how they want to word it in 11th. Oh, maybe that's true. Oh, that's a good call, actually, chat. It might be future proofing for sure. If they retain the data sheets, which they very well may, between editions, and they just, instead of attaching, you just always join, and joining is just how things work. God, that would be cleaner. Fuck me, that would be so much better. I'm in. I'm all in. Should we talk about some Huron's Raiders, chance? Or Huron's Marauders, excuse me. I'm going to move over to my GT. And I was looking for lists. So we just, the way that my GT works is that it runs for a really long time because it runs 1 week per round so that people can schedule their games. So we break it up into 3 sections. The first 2 rounds, the subsequent 3 rounds, and then the final 2 rounds. And each section you can submit a new list, and you can change your faction and do whatever you want. So I was looking for players who may have submitted the new stuff. And hilariously, and I'm going to see if I can stream this game. We're going to see how it goes. Hilariously, Ricochet, who we've had on stream before, and Sawyer, who I think we've also had on stream, but not for a while, both submitted new stuff, and then they paired against each other. So we're not the only people with new things, but very nearly. And I'm going to see if we can get that game on stream because it would be very funny. It's Aeldari, and we'll talk about the list momentarily, but it's Aeldari using the new Skyreaver datasheets versus Huron's Marauders, which is cool. Both of them they're not undefeated. They're 3-2, I think, going into round 6. So they have a above 50% win rate, but they're not undefeated. But to be fair, they have not been playing these these lists moving up to this point, obviously, because the rules lock was recent. So Huron's Marauders is the other new detachment. Let's talk about that momentarily. This is the one where when you have Huron in your army, well, first of all, you can choose your command phase to either give literally all your infantry +1 to hit, or fall back and shoot and charge. Fucking sick. You also retain dark packs. This isn't like the other Renegade Warband detachment where you strip out your dark packs. You keep those. So you're just playing Chaos Space Marines who also have +1 to hit on all your guns and stuff. In addition, if you have Huron Blackheart and he can see you, you get both, which is honestly on point for flavor. What a cool effect. Huron's just like, I'm watching you. You better not get stuck in combat. You better fall back and fucking shoot people at +1 to hit. Interestingly as well, it also only requires that Huron sees you, not that you see Huron. So if he's hiding behind a ruin, for example, all you have to do is tow the back end of your base into that ruin. Suddenly he can see you and you get both effects. So it's not the hardest thing in the world to trigger, but it's not easy. You also get some pretty good stratagems. I don't want to say they're as good as the Renegade Warband, but they are pretty solid. You can get improvements for damned units, whatever, who cares. Advance, shoot, and charge for 1 command point on any non-monster, non-vehicle. Very nice. Auto 6 advance. So if you have 2 CP, you can just jump those both together and you auto 6 advance, shoot, and charge. Pretty cool. It also works on mounted units too, which is so cool because it's just non-monster, non-vehicle. +1 to attacks. Also good. And a D6 surge move, it's okay. And then a reposition on monster, non-vehicle. So a lot of infantry and mounted payoffs, which is cool. Go back to where I found my list. Here we go. So in this case, we've got Cypher, we've got Huron, we've got the Masters of the Maelstrom, plus a Chaos Lord. No enhancements on anyone. We're just vibing. We have 1 Cultist Mob for the backline, Legionaries ×3, plus a Chosen Squad, plus Noise Marines ×2. ×3. Noise Marines ×3. Getting +1 to hit on all these guys, kind of baller. You have advance, shoot, and charge for 1 command point, +1 to hit permanently, so they all hit on 2s. Incredible. They do not have dark packs, though. That's important to keep in mind. But if you do put them in a Rhino, which I don't think we have, but if you do, the Rhino does provide dark packs and still benefits from the +1 to hit. So you hit on 2s with sustains. So you should full convert on average. Triple Obliterators. I think a little less useful than Renegade Warband probably, but pretty close. Triple Chaos Rhinos. So we do have Rhinos. Okay, just kidding. So again, kind of just a big gun line that shoots a lot. You can always fall back and shoot. You can have access to advance and shoot. It definitely, again, I guess the benefit is for the non Noise Marine models, you do retain your sustained or your lethal from your dark packs. But without rerolls, it's not as easy that you get access to them. It's interesting that this looks very much like a Renegade Marauders or whatever, Renegade Warband list, but it is Huron's Marauders. So also having the ability to fall back and do stuff without having to battle shock yourself is probably pretty cool too. Oh, the Rhino doesn't get +1 hit. You're right. Yeah, because it's infantry only. I glossed right over that. You're right. It is infantry only. So you can either get dark banks from shooting out of the firing deck, or you can get +1 to hit. Yeah, you're totally correct. Otherwise, I think you play a lot more vehicle guns in this detachment, probably. Yeah, that's my bad. Misspoke. So cool. So it's 1, 2, 3 units of Legionaries. It's important to keep in mind as well, the Legionaries will benefit from Huron's aura. So we have access to advance and charge with them. They can get reroll targeting people on objectives. So they're very fast and very powerful disruption pieces. And then they can go to OC3 with Huron. We have Chosen, who automatically advance and charge by themselves. And that's where Huron attaches, I guess. Most likely, I suppose. We could also we could attach all of these guys into either the Legionaries or the Chosen to give them advance and charge, which is probably pretty nice. I think you want the Chaos Lord inside the Legionnaire squad, because then he gets his wound reels for his devastating weapon, but you don't necessarily need it for the Chosen. So just having 1,000,000 attacks off a Chosen unit, especially because they get sustained or lethal from Dark Pact, and they have a Chaos Icon to reroll, feels pretty fine. The other thing, too, is like you have to keep in mind that I think the expected damage from these units is so much more consistent than it is in Renegade Warband, because you're dual benefiting from both your army ability and your detachment ability, whereas Renegade Warband, you only occasionally have hit rerolls, right? You have hit rerolls against up to 2 units per turn, whereas this detachment gives you permanent +1 to hit, and you retain dark packs. So you're essentially +2 to hit with these Legionaries. So these Legionary squads going into something hit on 2s, sustain 1, so should full convert, and then if they're charging something on an objective, full wound rerolls. So they basically convert like 75% if they're swinging into a T4 enemy, like 75% of their attacks into wounds, which is crazy when you think about it. Especially if we are focusing on Chaos Icon equipped units, because then the downside of those dark banks is not very helpful. I guess the unfortunate part is that we have +1 attack in melee. So the Chosen Huron unit, the Chosen and Masters unit goes kind of crazy. So you add 11 additional attacks in between 1 and 3 damage. For +1 attack. But the downside is cracking high toughness is probably the tough part. But I guess you could pray for lethal hits and then maybe it's fine. So that's pretty cool, chat. I like the mass legionary disruption. Just like running fast legionaries that are very efficient and can potentially get to OC3 is kind of cool. Blunt CP +21 attacks on ACDC. I guess so, but you lose out on all your other abilities. I guess you can do this, right? No, this is only guns. This doesn't fucking... I guess you could give +1 save to ACDC. Whatever, who cares? That doesn't matter. But you miss out on your... Oh, you don't miss out on the +1 to hit. It works on damn stuff. Just kidding. Does this also work on damn stuff? This one doesn't work on damn stuff. So if you play Renegade Warband, you can't buff your ACDC, but Huron's does. That seems pretty good, actually, chat. I'm gonna level with you. That's a lot. That's a lot of extra attacks. Woof. Hot diggity damn. Toughness is indeed the tough part. Indeed. Fair enough. Minigamer Gions of Battle? It was the most viewed channel for 2025. Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Thanks for making me your most viewed. So pretty cool stuff from Huron's Marauders. Definitely not the last time we'll see them. I do think this detachment provides interestingly, I guess like more unique benefits, I guess, than the other one does. So the Renegade Warband does feel like very consistent, but this one you get more of a passive effect. +1 to hit on all your infantry for the entire game is like a crazy ability. And that's not the entirety of the detachment ability. And you don't lose anything for doing it, so I don't know. It's not as fast as Renegade Warband, so that might be part of the arithmetic there. I just worry that, and I'm curious to see how people, once we get a couple weeks into playing this, how people feel about this half of the effect. Because the battle-shocked units, or the doctrines to battle-shock yourself, or potentially battle-shock yourself, feels like it's high upside, but the downside is astronomical. You could just immediately lose the game in some cases if you fail that test. And there's no way to manipulate it at all. Pretty scary. All right, chat. The one last thing I want to talk about is a little bit of Aeldari from the same event. Grab my notes sheet here. So this was hilariously also, this isn't like hugely new meta stuff, but it does play one of the new units, which is cool. And this is hilariously paired with that Huron's Marauders list that we just talked about. So I'm going to try to live stream this game because it would be cool. This is Sawyer Z from the GT. He's 3-2 as well. He's playing Aspect Host Aeldari. So this is that's the reroll ones for Aspect Warriors one. This is the one that got absolutely fucking nuked because you can no longer Skyborn Sanctuary your guys into a transport unless you fight. So previously you played Dark Reapers, you played Fire Dragons, and then you at the end of the fight phase you would hop them into your transport and just keep doing whatever you want. That was removed as an interaction. Can't do that anymore. And instead we are going to we're gonna just play other stuff. So we have Asterman, Janesar, Skyreavers, and that's the new unit. So these are, if we go over to our Aeldari document, which I think I closed because I am a goober. I'm going to go take a peek at that. Oh my god. Also, this detachment, by the way, incredibly popular. I was looking through Aeldari lists to find to see if I could find any Enrothi players, and like 50% of Aeldari players are on Harlequins right now. It's either Seer Council Windrider host or you're playing all Harlequins. Pretty wild, at least like competitively. So the Corsair Skyreavers are not the most exciting unit of all time. They get like a cool little fight phase movement. If they fight people, they can fall back from them at the end of the phase. It's pretty cool. But they probably just die to the crackback because they don't kill you anyway. So it doesn't really matter. However, the thing that it's important on them is Scout 7, 12-inch move. Those are big numbers, chat. This unit moves 19 inches on the top of the first turn. So they can, if you're all vehicles, they just movement block you. They're basically like warp spiders, but they cost like 25 points less. If that you need turn 1 secondaries, you get engaged, you get weird shit you have to do on your opponent's side. Tempting target is a big one. They can just go score that turn 1. Because they're going to advance. They have assault weapons. So advancing doesn't really affect them very much. They're still going to shoot you. They move 7 at the beginning. You can bump them to move 14 and then advance and do stuff. So you can just blitz them across the table. They're crazy fast. One of the most impressive utility squads that I've seen in a really long time. And that is what we are playing. So that's the only real new exciting thing, I guess, from the new detachment. Otherwise, we're playing one big Dark Reaper squad, Dire Avengers for Azurman to hop into. So if we have a Falcon, which we do right there, we can outie Azurman into the Falcon, pop out, get fire supported, get wounded rolls, blow people up, jump back in. Pretty sweet. 3 fire prisms for backline shooting. We do have an FAQ, and this was an interesting thing. So there was a change to, there's a big open question about how fire prisms ended up working. And that was because, we'll just grab their data sheet real quick. This isn't going to tell me. Sorry, chat. We're going to grab their actual data sheet. Because they have their linked fire ability, which lets them declare targets in line of sight of other fire prisms. Now, there was an open question about this effect with Infernal Puppeteer, which the reason that was an open question was that Infernal Puppeteer says when this unit is selected to shoot, or it said previously, it's been eroded so it works differently. Now it's just usable anytime in your shooting phase. You can choose to draw line of sight and range from a different model. You can use the Infernal Puppeteer ability. Fire prisms, interestingly, and I did a little bit of a deep dive on this, have always said you can determine measure range and determine visibility from another friendly fire prism. It doesn't say that they must be selected to shoot for this ability to work. It just says when they're selecting targets for this weapon. Now, this actually gets kind of, because the target eligibility rules of 40k are literally never defined. This means that because this weapon, at least to my reading, can always select targets within visibility range and visibility from another fire prism, their linked fire is always online, which means that even if the fire prisms themselves are hiding behind a train feature, they can still linked fire to other people. It doesn't require that they are otherwise eligible to shoot without using linked fire, which I thought was really cool. So there was like an open question because Infernal Puppeteer was such like a weird hot topic for a while. Whether or not the same thing was true of fire prisms, and I went back into the ability recently and realized that it is worded a fundamentally different than the puppeteer effect. So the fire prisms still good. We love a good fire prism in this house. And then from there, we're running Rangers. We're running Hound and Banshees. Interestingly, we're running Shining Spears, which is kind of cool. They give you some pretty solid anti-tank that are relatively high reliability with rerolls. Bunch of Swooping Hawks as well, and Warp Spiders. So it's basically this big brick of guns, right? The Falcon with Azerman, Dark Reapers, Fire Prisms that can play relatively conservatively. The Dark Reapers do actually have to expose themselves and attack you. They don't have a way to hide. They can fade away, so if they like cut a line of sight and then you shoot them and you lose a couple models, they can run away. So it's not the end of the world if they are exposed, but they're also really long range, so they're not the easiest thing to interact with. But then you can also just like be plowing fire prisms into people. While you have all of these super duper fast disruption pieces that can mess with your opponent in the center of the battlefield. And the Skyreavers fit into that perfectly because they're basically, like I said before, they're a 30-point discount on a Warp Spider squad. They don't shoot as hard because they don't have cool Toro weapons. But they move almost as fast. And they're so much cheaper. It's also very similar to Swooping Hawks as well, right? Swooping Hawks are a little bit faster and slightly harder to kill, but they're 20 points more expensive and don't scout. So on top of turn 1, they're actually significantly slower than the Skyreavers. So Skyreavers let you continue this theme while paying less points and having a better movement on turn 1, which feels great. You love to see it. But anyway, chat, I think those are all of the list that I want to talk about. And unless we have anything else to cover, I think that's going to be our stream for today. I think I'm going to revisit this topic next week, or at least I expect to, because I imagine that the proportion of Chaos Space Marine players and potentially even Unrathi players in large events like GTs and Majors 1 week from today is going to be dramatically improved. So we'll probably get another look at what these new detachments are looking like as we move on to next week. But other than that, I'll throw an obligatory shout out to my teams event. I think we've had 5 or 6 teams register so far before we hop off. Noise Marine Legionnaire Rhino Spam feels like 3rd, 4th position. Yeah, in fairness, honestly, Noise Marines being the penultimate, or in some cases even the ultimate in infantry shooting, has always meant that they have like this additional play rate essentially. When will the new detachments be legal? Right now. They are available on the website. I think most events use website release for digital content as the official release date. I know some use app release date, but in my opinion, the app is stupid and not good. So who cares? Anyway. Yeah. So let's give a quick shout out. We've got 6 teams so far for the event. If we hit more than 8, we will progress to an additional round if you want to play, but there's no requirement for your team to participate after the round. But these are teams of 8. The event is going to be for both T5ST, which is my tournament circuit, and National Tabletop League, which is the US 8-player tournament circuit. If you're interested in 8-player Team 40K, I'm running this on my Discord server right now. It is a $5 per player ticket price. The ticket price says 40, but that's because it costs per team of 8, but it ends up only being $5 per player. And that's going to go into prizes, as well as there will be some of it goes to the prize pool for the invitational at the end of the season. But anyway, that's what we got going on. So yeah, chats. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will probably, I think, be live. I'm waiting on a bunch of finals games to schedule, as well as GT games to schedule for Twitch streaming. I think I will probably be live after we end up over here over on Twitch. So if you want to come hang out with me, I will be doing a little bit of gaming and stuff. So I'll see you all over there. There's my Twitch link. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. Remember to keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, all that stuff. And I will see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.